of the EmPower Hour. I am Dana Brooks. I am a partner here at Facey Brooks Law Firm, and the EmPower Hour is brought to you by Facey Brooks and the EmPower Plan. And that's a group that we have started, and we've encouraged a bunch of enlightened people to become members of it and share things that they find empowering that help promote women and women's issues. So welcome back, everybody. I'm joined, as always, by Carrie Roane, my law partner. Kimmy Hogan will be joining us. She's playing actual dress-up lawyer today, so she'll have to join us later. We've got Lori Finn, our marketing director, joining us again today. And we have Rose Kasweck, who has a very important task in our group, and that is to give us our drink of the week. So, Rose, what are we having today?
Sure. We are having spiked lemonade in honor of Beyonce, feminist icon. There's bourbon in it, and it's fresh lemonade that I made last night because I am crazy.
I actually witnessed this. I saw a video of this happening. So she did make the lemonade herself. This tastes to me kind of like a really good whiskey sour, except that I enjoyed from my single days of my youth. It was one of my drinks I went through. I do like a cherry with it, though. So just, a note for the future, maybe that could make a great drink even better.
I do have maraschino cherries back there in my growing.
I think that's what I'll get somebody to get those for us. Okay, now we have covered our drink. Now let's cover our topic. We're talking today about kind of the disrespect women are getting. And it's really escalating and turning into physical danger. That's what we're going to see the more we keep bumping up and breaking through glass ceilings or starting, at the top and not staying in our lane. We're going to get some pushback. And so today, if you've been following the news at all, you've heard about the Governor Whitmer of Michigan. They uncovered a pretty sophisticated plot. They were going to kidnap her, take her to some location, make her stand their version of trial for treason because she had put out executive orders limiting their rights, like a lot of people did. Our governor in Florida did that to us for a period of time whenever it was deemed in the public safety in their interest. Our government doesn't encroach on our freedoms like that often, and so I think most reasonable people saw that as something necessary for health and for the greater good. But there were marginalized people, these fringe people, and that form these militias, who felt like that was just the beginning of the end, slippery slope, to losing all kinds of rights. And so they wanted her to be accounted, to be held to account for that. I just don't think they would have done this were she a man.
No.
And I don't believe that and I'm sure there's plots like this all over the place. This is a pretty sophisticated plot. They had actually done exercises and drills, and it was extended beyond the state of Michigan. It was pretty big thing. So let's talk about that a little bit. How do you feel about that? And then, we could also talk a little bit about the debate. I don't like to get political too much on here about substantive political issues because, you can't just assume every progressive woman or every enlightened, empowered woman is a liberal or is not conservative, or what party she is, or the people who support them. So without getting into that kind of substantive stuff, I do think she was shown some disrespect, but I don't think that she would have been shown. And the moderator was talked over and just pretty much ignored because there was just no deference or respect under them in their roles at all. So that's happened more and more. Lots of just rude behavior. What do you think about that, Carrie?
Well, it's kind of sad because it seems like all this has started with the comments, grab him by the pussy. And, everybody seems like it's okay now to kind of reverse, go back 50, 60 years and treat women like objects. And today what happened, I think, and I'm not being political when I say that, but you can see a trend over the past 4 or 5 years of the way women are being treated differently than we were 10 years ago. I think what happened today is scary, quite frankly, and I'm not an alarmist. And, I don't believe everything I read in the news, and I get my news from various sources, but what happened today is scary. So do women have to be scared that there's some militia man on our block that might not agree with what I say, and he feels like he's entitled to, kill me or kidnap me or denigrate me or whatever, it's really scary. And I think it kind of sheds a lot of light on what might really be happening and the way people might really think about us.
I agree with that. I don't think that we're treated. I think that we're treated differently because there's a confusion of, well, you want to be an equal, so be treated equal, versus, okay, now I'm going to abuse you.
Yeah.
There's a difference, and people have way crossed the line. When we talk about equality and equal opportunity, it's not equal opportunity to be abused.
Right.
Men don't get disrespected at the same rate. So this is something that is happening, and you're frustrating a lot of people whenever you do step out of your lane. That's just going to happen. But we're all adults here, and we ought to be able to control our behavior regardless of the stimulus that's creating a reaction in us. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, my feelings are similar to Carrie's in that it's scary. I mean, we face enough threats as women, even for one of the most powerful women in the country is a governor, very well, protected, very high up in society, can face a credible threat of something like that is scary. In general, with the equality thing, I mean, I think we all probably know there's these studies of where if women and men talk equally, or if men even talk more than women, they still feel like they're being dominated. There was a study back in 1980 where there was a teacher in a classroom and she spent 58% of her time with boys and 32% of her time or 42% of her time with girls, and the boys still felt like they were not getting their time. They were being dominated by the teacher was spending with the girls, and that was even after the teacher was trying to be 50-50 equal, boys and girls, and she still ended up spending more time with the boys, and the boys still felt like they were getting less time with the teacher. So I think we have to be careful to recognize equality. I think things have hopefully improved. That was a study in 1980 since then that we've recognized some of these things. But it's the same thing in the debate that Hank interrupted more than Harris, but Harris is the one getting pushed back for being rude and interrupting. They interrupt each other. Obviously, they should try to limit that as much as they can for decorum, like we talked about last week. But it's going to happen, and you can't get down on the woman more than the man for that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Isn't it sad though? I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you, Dana, but doesn't it show the men, the militia that were trying to kidnap the governor, doesn't it show that they're weak? I mean, are you really that scared because a woman might have different ideas, or a woman might be running the state better than somebody else, or she might have a voice? I mean, are you that scared of women and scared of our voices that you have to commit violence against us? I mean, to me, that shows great weakness and men who would be willing to do that.
Well, you just got to look at the type of people who get involved in these conspiracy theory type things anyway. I mean, you're not talking about Rhodes Scholars. These are not the the best and the brightest we have to offer. But yeah, I think what it is they kind of liked how things were. They don't want their apple cart upset, and we're doing that. And my response to that is, get used to it. You're gonna get more of it. We're not going in the opposite direction. And we're not trying to take anything from anybody. We just want a voice in decisions that affect us.
Mm-hmm.
We want representation. We want equality. That's not crazy. That's not weird. I've heard somebody use the word last week that it wasn't biblical. Women in these roles, it's not biblical.
Really?
And I suppose it's not, but that's not my standard. But that's not my ultimate standard that I'm reaching for, is to attain biblical status as a woman. So I think for people who choose that, good for you. If as long as you make that decision eyes wide open, and you understand what the consequences are if your plans don't work out, and you don't have 100% control over that in a marital relationship. But I don't know. I don't think they would do this to a man. I think it's just people who fear, what's coming, and they've created something in their mind that's probably a lot worse than it actually is. I wanted to hear from you, Lori. You raised sons, don't you?
I do. I have 3 sons, and this event, the spoiled kidnapping, has really gone a step further in the trend of more and more it's okay to say horrible things about women. I felt like we had kind of gotten to a place where we weren't at least saying them in public forums. I mean, you might have said them at home or whatever, but now more and more people are feeling empowered to say these things. And now this group feels even more empowered that they're going to do something about it. And they feel like they are legit.
Yeah.
To do it. That's what's scary to me, is when people start feeling like, you know, there's probably other people out there that feel like I do, and they're going to encourage me and stuff. And to me, that's whenever it becomes a lot more real and more scary. And, but going back to what
do you teach? And, have conversations when things like this happen. Do you use these news events as teaching opportunities? I know, Carrie, you also raise some news.
Oh yeah, and I think Lori and I are raising them similarly. We definitely use these kind of moments as teaching moments, you know, especially when my 15-year-old asked me the other day, he's like, why do women still need to be empowered? I'm like, you know, this is the perfect example today. You have a United States governor who's a woman and is under threat to be kidnapped and tried by militia. I mean, that's exactly why more women need to be empowered in bigger roles and more leadership roles. So this is actually a good teaching opportunity, I think. But yeah. You know, Lori and I use all different, very similar methods. You know, we want boys to know that they can be emotional, they can be empathetic, they can be compassionate. I don't know. I didn't mean to take your.
No. I think that's where I want to kind of go with that. I'm right on it. And, you know, I'm very interested in this from a personal perspective, and I want people to pay more attention to sexism in their homes. And what they expose their children to. And it's subtle. It's very subtle, but a lot of times when we're in our homes, especially, we're very comfortable and we let our guard down and we forget those little eyes are on us all the time. And so whenever you say things like, well, you got to do that with your dad, I'm not good at math. You know, when you do things like that, you're just diminishing your status as a woman and you're making yourself look less than to your children. I told a story one time about traveling somewhere, and I could tell my daughter, just the two of us, my daughter was a good bit younger, we were overseas for the first time, with just the two of us, and I could tell she didn't feel as comfortable with me as she did when my husband was with us. You know, she just didn't see me as competent and as capable of doing things that we just do going through life, you know. And I had been casual about deference to him, showing deference to him in the home. And I realized that what I was doing was just trying to have a peaceful home, not have a conflict over every little thing. But what I was showing my daughter was I have diminished status. You know, I am not as important. What I feel and how my mood is not as important. And so be very careful about the very subtle things you do. I also had a friend with me not too long ago, and her young son was with her, and he was very verbally disrespectful to her. He interrupted her a lot and corrected her. I mean, this is a second grader. And so I was like, whoa, I want you to get a hold of that. I mean, I'm not saying anything to her. It's none of my business. But in my mind, I was thinking, oh, gosh, he already thinks he's superior to you because of his gender, you know? And, you know, when we were divorced, when people are co-parenting with other parents, a lot of times you don't get along well. And so it's hard to feel supported. That's why it's so important to work with your child's other parents. I don't care if you can stand that person. I do not care. Find some way to come together to parent those children so they see a united front and they see both parents being equally respected. It's for your children's best interest.
Yeah.
Let's say, what do you think about that? Just kind of inherent things that are happening in the world that kind of suggest and signal that women are just lower status. They just don't know.
Well, thinking about in the home, like in my home growing up, my mom worked full time and did pretty much all the stuff around the house too. And it didn't like diminish her in my eyes that, oh, you know, mom's got to do it all and dad doesn't have to do anything. But it certainly didn't model a partnership. So what am I going to get out of a marriage down the line?
Yeah.
Nothing. No kind of help. Not do anything. So that's something to consider. And also just like, it's a cliche, your children are always watching, they're watching what you do. But something that I think women are especially prone to, and that I've seen a lot of people comment on, is like your own body image. You wouldn't criticize your child, like, oh, back away from the table, fatty. But you're like, oh, me, I can't fit in my clothes. And that's something to be aware of, that you're denigrating yourself. They're seeing that, and they're seeing your lack of confidence. And be aware.
Yeah, I do think that. They pick up on these subtle messages, which are, looks matter so much, clothes matter so much, acting a certain way, not upsetting anybody or stepping on anybody's toes. There's just all these expectations for female behavior, and simply the fact of trying to maintain those expectations suggests that we have bought into it ourselves, thinking that we are a second-class citizen. We have to do all these things men don't have to do to be taken as seriously or to be valued. So a lot of that we're doing to ourselves, 100%, and we're modeling it for our children. I have one daughter, but my husband and I raised two children, two other daughters together, and they're all about the same age. And I was always very mindful of that, of what they got and what they saw and what they made of it, and you can't really parent other people's children too directly. But it was important for me that they saw me as competent, capable, and that was not always easy to do. It's just the roles are so established and the assumptions are so pervasive about being a ladylike, women behavior.
Yep.
So, what about anything else Carrie, what were you going to say?
I was going to say one more thing. So Gloria Steinem said something a long time ago, and I think it was really profound. And it was about, we're doing a great job raising girls to be more like boys, but we need to do a better job of raising boys to be more like girls. And what that means is, also, boys grow up and they think they have to be the breadwinner. They think they have to do certain things. They have to be the strong guy. They can't cry. But we need to raise boys. And what we're doing in my household is to know that they don't have to be the breadwinner. The female in the house or somebody else in the house can be the breadwinner. They can cry. They can show emotion. I know I just said that earlier, but we talk about women superheroes in life, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and why she was important. We talk about the feminists or the Nobel prize winners today that were physicists, not feminists, although I'm sure they're both. But like instead of just talking about Albert Einstein, you talk about these, the females that worked for NASA and Kennedy Space Center in the 1960s. So you have to, raising boys, you have to introduce all that into their lives, because they're not really going to get it elsewhere except in the home. So it's really, I think it's amazing that Dana raised strong women, and I think what Lori and I are both trying to do, and Kimmy as well, when her boys get older, is raise boys to be strong men, but also to be more, maybe just human, or more like people, or more like girls.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this before. Gail Sheed, who did Passages of the 70s, very, very important book. And it was on, kind of like aging and cycles and development, but she was updating it. I met her at a Renaissance weekend, I think a couple of years ago. She died of COVID in August. I just learned that because I was citing her and I was Googling her to make sure I got her name right. And I saw that. But when I saw her and met her, she spoke to our group on men. She was updating Passages, but she was focusing on men. She says, our girls are doing pretty well, believe it or not. And I do believe that. Yeah. She says, but our boys are suffering. She was just finding this over and over again. And she was talking about men in their 20s and 30s still living at home with their mothers for various reasons. A lot of them having to do with economic opportunity and student debt. I mean, those are all subsections we could spend a lot of time on talking about why people are struggling, why young people are struggling. But she was noticing that. She says the boys are struggling with the concept of what it just actually means to be a man. She said that's just vexing to them because, when I was growing up, I'm 52. When I was growing up, you had John Wayne, you had Clint Eastwood, you had these manly men. And it was very easy to know what a man was supposed to be. He was Ronald Reagan. He was a leader. He was, strong, tough. And then when men stopped participating in parenting, kind of abruptly, men not sticking around, and if they get divorced, not being very active in the children's lives. That resulted in a lot of children being raised by women. And women are different. They parent different. They're softer. They tend to be. This is generalisms, not always, but they were finding that, these boys, while they were becoming a little bit more sensitive and, more evolved, they were that was confusing to them. It was just much easier when it was very clear what it meant to be a man. If you could do it or not was a whole different thing, but at least you knew what the target was. And this is changing for them. Another thing I wanted to admit my prejudice about this. It goes to something Carrie said. I have a real issue with stay-at-home dads. And I think it's just because of what I've had to overcome and deal with to reach my level of success. I never had the wind at my back. My success was obtained, knocking people upside the head and clobbering my way. And I always think of, especially a white man, is like, man, you had the wind at your back. You couldn't make anything out of all this privilege you had. What the hell are you doing? You've got all this, everything going for you. Go out and reach your potential. So it's a prejudice that I have. And intellectually, I know I shouldn't have it. But all those messages to me about men and women that I've received over the past 52 years they're alive and well. What do you all think about that?
Well, I'd like to,
Lori,
if you don't mind. I feel like with all of this, the biggest thing we need to do now is ask our male partners and our male friends to help educate, number one, to have a different outlook and start learning how they can change their behavior towards women instead of asking women to change their behavior. And then also teach, boys coming up how they need to treat women. Just the other day in our neighborhood, some women were running and these teenage boys drove by and just yelled all these terrible things at them and were commenting on their bodies and all this other kind of stuff. And it was posted in a public forum like, look, I was running today, this happened. Can you please tell your children not to do this? Some people were like, well, what's wrong with that? I would have appreciated a cat call. And then someone else was just like, it's just kids. And it was a mix of men and women saying these things. And it's just like, as a longtime runner, I've had bottles. I've been chased through parking lots. I've had men stop and try to talk to me. I've had several things going on, and I shouldn't have to protect myself or try and figure out carrying mates with me or something like that. Men should be taught not to do these things. And the best thing that we're exactly right is talk to our children now and say, that was really inappropriate. You just made them feel very unsafe and insecure.
Yeah.
That you're not being a big man doing that, And then also with that, just having, like I said, your partner be an example to the boys growing up, and how they talk to their wife, how they talk to them is huge. And they should always, have their back, always have a woman's back like that.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Here's the one thing that is the difference between the two genders. For the most part, they're bigger and louder. That's really about it. For years, we needed them for protection from things trying to kill us, including other of them. But, technology and evolution has taken care of a lot of those things. So I don't want to hear any more about women needing to modify their behavior so they don't get hurt. That's the exact wrong focus. If anybody noticed what I posted in the EmPower plant yesterday, it was part of a TED Talk a man gave. It was exactly on that very point. He said, why do we hear about how many women were raped last year? Why don't we hear about how many men raped people?
Yes, exactly.
Why are we focused on the victim? And then we focus on the victim's behavior, the victim's motivation for reporting, not reporting, saying something, not saying something. Is this real harassment? Is this real rape? All these doubtful things that always focus not on the bad actor and the bad behavior, but on what the victim's role in it was. So that needs to stop. And I think that would be a great opportunity when it comes up to talk to our sons and young men about seeing that totally differently. And, if you are an empowered man, empower other men. You don't listen to men. I've seen this happen. They seem to have a good brotherhood and camaraderie. Why don't some of you with leadership qualities and who all know these things, why don't you be a mentor to some other ones who have lost their way, who maybe don't have a male role model? Maybe they were, raised with a largely absent role model, and maybe you could be one and help them help some of these women who are trying to parent young men and boys too. Everybody could use a little bit of help. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about today? Because we are trying to wrap it up to keep it just to 30 minutes because I know everybody's got a lot of things they need to do. Rose, do you have any more thoughts on these things?
Yeah, I think our overarching topic today was what makes an empowered man, and we're looking at that in terms of respecting women, and that is something that if everyone's empowered, then everyone can be on an equal footing. And I think one of the things to bring men into recognizing the importance of that is that this like toxic masculinity thing affects them too. It's hurting them too. Like, you don't want to be seen as a villain. You don't want women to be scared to be alone in a room with you. You don't want a woman to be looking over her shoulder when you're just trying to walk home at night. Then you all have to change your behavior to get that to happen. The feelings, the sensitivity things, like it's okay. You can have feelings. You're human. That's gotten to the point where it's like a joke online where it's like, fellas, is it gay to have a wife? Like, you love a woman. That's kind of sissy. Yeah. So that's they're so soft and this is weird. That's gay. So that's obviously the extreme, but connect with yourself.
There's a lot of role model. I mean, a lot of mindsets that we all have to kind of get ourselves out of it. I would like for women to try to be more mindful and conscious about how many times you show deference to a man for no other reason than his gender. You do it all day long.
All day.
I know I do it all day long, and I am highly attuned to. I used to carry around a little clicker, and I click every time I did it. You will do it. You'll find yourself doing it all the time. It could be an older white guy, and you just assume you know things about him, and I've got to say this to him or whatever because that's what his expectations are going to be. And it's just like a second unconscious job women have of managing male egos constantly. So I don't see a lot of value in that. And I think that that's one of the bad things that we do that perpetuates some of the treatment we don't enjoy receiving. So I would like for you to watch your own behavior, how many times you show deference to a man for no other reason than his gender. And then how many times you might encourage that in your children, whether they're male or female, how you might encourage very rigid gender stereotypes. And then think about what the value of that is. And is there a negative to it? And if so, does it outweigh the good? Let's go around to the panel one more time and get some final thoughts on what is an empowered man and how does an empowered man help female empowerment? Lori, let's start with you.
Okay, so I think it's being responsible for your own actions and how you're affecting other women, and making sure you're not putting something out there where you're putting it on her to change how she's behaving in order for you to feel legit and what you're doing. We just, I think also we just need to keep an eye on our kids and make sure they are seeing us feel empowered and that we're asking the people around us to treat us in the way that we should be treated so our children see that as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with content. You can control what your kids see and are exposed to. Song lyrics, treatment of women in movies, TV, things like that. So don't let it be insidious. Try to be cognizant of all the ways they receive messaging. Right. Rose, what about you? What's the final thought? This was fantastic, by the way. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yay. I think the most important thing is to everybody listen to each other. Like if it's all the same type of person saying the same things over and over again, nobody learns from anybody. We especially hear about this all the time now, where everyone's on social media, everyone's in their bubble, everyone's in their echo chamber. And so if you're a man, listen to a woman. If you're a woman, listen to a man. If you're a man in a room where a woman's trying to speak, let her speak. Those types are very important. If people, that's something that men can do that will help the conversation, is if you see a woman getting talked over, help her speak up, like quiet everybody down, do something, It's like, oh, so-and-so had a point. Listen to them.
And do that if you're a woman who's holding the conversation. Find a way to bring other women in and help them be included. And listening is a very important thing. And I encourage people to listen with the intent to hear and to understand, not the intent to respond. You know the difference. When you're listening to somebody, you're like, I wish this person would shut up so I could dump my, verbal bomb on them. That's not listening. So really listen with an intent to understand and start from a position of, oh, I don't know everything, so maybe I can learn something here. Carrie, what are your final thoughts?
It's funny. It's almost like you were a fly on the wall for a conversation I had with the boys last night. You don't know everything. You're 13, you're 15, you don't know everything, and stop trying to talk over me and let me finish what I'm trying to say and listen to what I'm trying to say instead of formulating your response. Just soak everything I'm saying in. But my final thought would be, I just want men to believe in women. We can do everything. It might not be the same, but if I wanted to go into the military and be in combat, I can do it. It might not be the same as you. It might be a little bit different, but that doesn't mean it's going to be any worse. If I want to be a physicist, if I want to be, whatever women want to be, support us, because we can do it. And don't say that we can't do it. I think that's holding people back. And like I said, it might not be the same. If we have a female president, she might not do it the same as a male president. It might be better, but it's just different. We bring a lot of value to these positions that we want to be in, and we don't want to have, the boot of a man's foot on our neck holding us back. Just let us believe in us.
Yeah. I mean, just look at it. I mean, countries with women leaders are doing really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think that's the truth, is we've just got to let go of a lot of the stereotypes that we've held on to. And that means women let go of them too, and stop putting them on yourself and using that lens to see everybody through. So I enjoyed it today, ladies. Always a good topic, good discussion whenever we have an interesting topic like this. So everybody join us join our Facebook group. It's the Facing Brooks EmPower Plant. Join this Basic Brooks if you like. Check us out. Go to the website. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and email us or send us some direct messages and just let us know what kind of things you'd like to talk about or anything you would like to get out of the group. We're open to any kind of suggestions. This is a good, safe place to empower women and empower men who believe in us. So thanks, everybody, and have a good night.
Good night.